The battlefield breathed like a living beast. Dawn spread across the sky in streaks of pale fire, brushing the horizon with a trembling glow. Thousands of soldiers stood ready with pounding hearts, their chariots arranged in disciplined rows, their breaths mixing with the cold air. The scent of dust, sweat, and the iron tang of waiting swords floated like an invisible fog. Arjuna stood at the front, his bow resting on his thigh, his eyes lost in the swirling hedge of war preparations. His heart pounded, not with excitement, but with a choking heaviness he couldn't swallow. He could hear the horses snorting, warriors chanting, conch shells crying out. Yet inside, everything felt strangely mute. Beside him stood Krishna, serene, unshaken, like the silent center of a roaring storm. Arjuna, Krishna said softly, "Your breath trembles." Arjuna exhaled sharply. "How can it not? Look at them, Krishna. Look at both armies. Uncles, teachers, friends. Must I strike them down? Must my hands spill blood that raised me, guided me, loved me?" The wind whipped through his hair as if urging him to steady himself, but his heart had already sunk. His fingers tightened around his bow, then loosened, then tightened again. "I cannot do this," he whispered. Krishna did not answer, not yet. Instead, he looked across the battlefield with calm eyes that saw not just the war, but the turmoil inside Arjuna's soul, a turmoil that threatened to break him from within. The silence between them swelled until Arjuna finally spoke again, voice thick. "Krishna, tell me, how does a man act? How does he fulfill duty without drowning in attachment? How does he fight when his soul refuses? Teach me, please, because right now, I feel like a flame struggling in the storm." Krishna turned, placing a steady hand on Arjuna's shoulder. "Then listen, Partha. Listen not to the clamor of war, but to the truth that lies deeper than fear." Arjuna closed his eyes, and the world around him faded. War dissolved. Time slowed. The earth seemed to disappear beneath his feet as Krishna's voice rose, deep, gentle, and luminous like the first spark of creation. "Let me tell you of the path," Krishna said. "The path walked by sages, warriors, seekers, and those who yearn for peace. A path where action does not bind and the heart remains untethered." Arjuna opened his eyes. The battlefield remained. Yet suddenly, he felt suspended between two worlds, the outer chaos and the inner revelation. "Tell me," he whispered. And Krishna began. The air shimmered as Krishna spoke, and for a moment, Arjuna felt as though the entire battlefield held its breath. "The true yogi," Krishna said, "is not the one who abandons action, but the one who abandons attachment to action." Arjuna frowned. "Without attachment? But is that even possible? When we act, we desire a result, don't we? Victory, success, reward, even survival." Krishna smiled faintly. "Exactly. And that desire, that expectation, that trembling hunger for the fruit, that is the chain." Arjuna took a slow breath, listening. "Imagine a farmer," Krishna continued. "He plows the land, sows the seed, waters the field. He does everything with devotion. But does he command the rain? Control the sunlight? Force the seed to sprout? No, Arjuna. He works and then lets go. That is Nishkama Karma. Action offered, action done with dedication, but without grasping at the outcome." Arjuna's heartbeat steadied slightly. "But Krishna," he said, "softer now, if one does not desire the fruit of action, why even act at all? What drives a person then?" Krishna's eyes glowed like molten gold. "Dharma," he said, "duty, integrity, the inner compass given by the soul itself." Arjuna felt something stir inside him, an ember long buried. "The sage," Krishna continued, "does not act for reward, nor out of fear, nor because he seeks praise or status. He acts because it is right, because the world moves through him, not around him. He becomes an instrument, and that is freedom." A gust of wind swept through the battlefield, lifting dust and stirring flags. Arjuna looked at Krishna with confusion mixed with awe. So the doer becomes no one and yet does everything? Krishna nodded. Yes, when desire falls away, action becomes pure. It becomes powerful. It becomes effortless. Like the river flowing, like the flame burning, like the wind moving across the sky. Arjuna's doubts still clung to him, but something had shifted. A small crack had appeared in the wall of his fear. Yet he asked again, urgently, Krishna, but what about renunciation? Many say that giving up work, abandoning duty, retreating from the world, that is the real path. Krishna's voice thundered, soft yet overwhelming. Arjuna, the one who renounces action but clings to desire, he is bound. But the one who acts without desire, he is free. Arjuna's mind trembled. So, renunciation is not the escape from work, but from the craving behind work? Yes, Krishna said, and his word echoed like truth carved in stone. The sage who performs action without longing for reward is the true renunciate, not the one who simply puts down his tools. The earth beneath Arjuna seemed steadier now, as though Dharma itself had whispered to him. So the path is action, but action without chains. Krishna smiled. Now you begin to see. A silence fell between them again, not empty, but potent, like the hush before dawn. Arjuna gazed at Krishna, then at the armies waiting for command. His heart still quivered with conflict, yet he felt a spark glowing somewhere deep. Krishna, he said slowly, tell me, how does a man live this truth? How does he stand firm in the middle of chaos and not waver? Krishna's expression softened. By becoming like the quiet mountain, he said, unmoved, rooted, centered in the self. Arjuna tilted his head. But how does one reach such stillness? My mind is a restless storm. It refuses to stay calm, refuses to obey. It runs wild, crying, doubting, fearing. Krishna placed his hand over Arjuna's heart. Every mind is restless, Partha. Even the mind of the greatest sage was once a storm. But the yogi learns to master it, gently, patiently, like taming a wild horse. Arjuna closed his eyes, feeling his breath slow under Krishna's touch. The sage established in yoga, Krishna said, is one who has conquered the inner turbulence. He sees honor and dishonor with equal eyes. He stands unmoved by praise or insult, gain or loss, pleasure or pain. Arjuna opened his eyes, startled. Equal? But that seems impossible. How can a man not feel hurt when insulted? Not feel joy when praised? Krishna chuckled lightly. Feeling is natural, but the sage does not let it control him. His peace is not borrowed from circumstance. It rises from within, unshakable. The wind ruffled their clothes, carrying whispers from the waiting armies. A man becomes free, Krishna continued, when he no longer dances to the tune of his desires, when his actions arise from clarity, not compulsion. Arjuna whispered, a quiet mountain. Yes, but Krishna, he said, a mountain stands alone. How does a human heart remain untouched by love, grief, relationships, memories? The bonds that shape us. Krishna's voice became tender. Arjuna, detachment does not mean abandoning love. It means loving without ownership, acting without clinging, caring without fear. This is the strength of the sage. Arjuna felt tears sting his eyes, not of sorrow, but of recognition. So the yogi is not cold, he is free. Krishna nodded. Exactly. And this freedom comes from mastery over the mind? Yes, Arjuna. When the mind becomes your servant, peace becomes your nature. Arjuna inhaled deeply, the air filling his chest like new life. For the first time since the war drums began to beat, he felt as though he could breathe. Krishna's words wrapped around Arjuna's heart like a protective shield. Yet the warrior's gaze had drifted again to the battlefield, to the faces he would soon face with bow and arrow. Krishna, he said, voice quivering, I hear your words. But when I look at them, my teachers, my kin, my resolve collapses again. How can one remain calm? How can one act with clarity when emotions rage like fire? Krishna stepped forward, the early morning light gleaming on his crown. Then listen to this, he said gently. The sage whose mind is disciplined is like a lamp sheltered from the wind. The flame does not flicker. Arjuna felt something stir deep in his chest. A lamp that does not flicker, he repeated. But my mind, it trembles like a flame in a storm. Krishna smiled knowingly. That is why the discipline of yoga exists, not the twisting of limbs, Arjuna, but the training of awareness, the harnessing of thought, the centering of breath. The sky grew brighter as the sun climbed, casting golden light over them. The yogi, Krishna continued, withdraws his senses from distractions, like a tortoise drawing its limbs into its shell. He fixes his focus, calms his breath, anchors his awareness. Through this discipline, patience, practice, sincerity, he becomes steady. Arjuna's shoulders loosened. His breath deepened. But, Krishna, he said, does the yogi abandon life? Does he leave the world behind to meditate in forests and caves? Krishna shook his head. No, Arjuna. The true yogi lives in the world, acts in the world, but is not enslaved by it. His actions are guided, not scattered. His heart is anchored, not drifting. His mind is luminous, not clouded. Arjuna felt the words pour into him like sunlight. The lamp burns steadily, Krishna said, because it is sheltered. Likewise, the yogi's peace remains unbroken because he shelters his mind in awareness. So peace, Arjuna whispered, is not given, it is cultivated. Yes, and the sage who reaches this state is free from desire? Krishna nodded. From desire, from fear, from agitation. He neither clings nor rejects. He acts because action is needed. But he is not shaken by outcomes. A deep quiet settled over Arjuna, a quiet he had not known in days. But Krishna, he asked softly, what is the sign that one has reached this state? Krishna pointed toward the rising sun. The sign, he said, is the same as dawn. It appears not suddenly, but gradually, yet unmistakably. There comes a moment when the heart feels light, when anger dissolves, when fear falls away, when one begins to see with clarity rather than confusion. Arjuna swallowed hard. His throat felt tight. And then, he whispered. Then, Krishna said, the warrior becomes a sage. The sage becomes a warrior. And both dissolve into one, the one who acts without attachment. Arjuna closed his eyes, letting the truth soak into every corner of his being. The flame within him flickered, steadied, then burned brighter. A soft wind swept across the field, fluttering the banners tied to chariots, carrying the scents of earth and steel. Arjuna stood silent beside Krishna, his earlier despair slowly transforming into something firmer, something like resolve, though still fragile. Krishna, he said, tell me more. Tell me of the sage who is established in yoga. What does he look like? How does he live? How does he move through the world? Krishna's smile widened, his eyes gleaming with warmth. He moves like one who belongs to no one, and yet belongs to all. He carries nothing, yet carries everything inside. His heart holds no pride, no arrogance, no sense of I am the doer. He acts, but knows he is not the one who acts. Arjuna looked baffled. Not the doer, but Krishna. If not him, then who performs the action? Krishna pointed at Arjuna's own bow. When the arrow flies, Arjuna, is it the bow alone, the string alone, the archer alone, or the wind, or the target's position, or the strength you built through years of practice, or the countless meals that nourished your muscles, or the sunlight that made the plants grow into grain? Arjuna blinked. Krishna, it is all of them. Exactly. Krishna said, action is not yours alone. It is the sum of infinite causes, seen and unseen. The sage sees this truth. And because he does not claim doership, he is untouched by pride or guilt. Arjuna inhaled sharply. So the yogi acts, knowing the world acts through him? Yes. And because of that, he is free? Krishna nodded. When a man stops saying, I do this, and begins to say, this action happens through me, his ego loosens its grip. His heart becomes light. He acts with precision, with strength, with focus, yet remains unshaken by success or failure. Arjuna's pulse quickened. Something inside him felt incredibly close to awakening. Such a person, Krishna continued, neither hates work nor clings to it. Neither runs away from life nor drowns in it. He walks a middle path, straight, steady, luminous. Arjuna whispered, like a flame, sheltered from the wind. Krishna nodded. Yes, and this sage, he needs nothing. He needs only one thing, the steady vision of the self. Everything else becomes secondary. The sun now glowed like a disk of molten gold, rising high above the battlefield, illuminating Krishna's form in a radiant aura. Arjuna's heart thundered as he looked at him. Krishna, all this sounds so pure, so beautiful. But is such a state truly attainable? Can a human reach such mastery? Krishna's voice became soft, almost a whisper carried by the wind. Yes, Arjuna, anyone who strives with sincerity can touch this truth. Even if only for a moment, that moment becomes the seed of liberation. Arjuna felt as though something inside him had cracked open. A shell breaking, a flood of light pouring in. He felt his bow lighter in his hands. His shoulders felt less burdened. Krishna, he whispered, I want to become such a sage, even if I must walk through fire to reach that state. Krishna placed a hand over Arjuna's heart again. And you will, because the fire you speak of is already within you. Arjuna's breath trembled. The flame inside him no longer flickered. It blazed. The battlefield roared back into focus. Chariots, soldiers, war cries, the trembling earth beneath thousands of marching feet. Yet Arjuna no longer felt crushed under its weight. His eyes were calmer. His breath was steady. His heart anchored. Krishna stood beside him, radiant, unwavering. Arjuna, he said softly, now tell me, what do you feel? Arjuna looked at the armies, at the flags fluttering violently, at the faces that once filled him with dread and confusion. And for the first time, he did not tremble. I feel, he whispered, clarity. The word tasted like truth. I see now that fear clouded my sight. Attachment chained my hands. Desire twisted my judgment. I was drowning in emotion. Krishna, suffocating. But now I feel as though the storm has passed. Krishna nodded with serene approval. Arjuna continued, voice strengthening, I must act. But not for victory, not for revenge, not for pride or grief. I act because it is my dharma, my path, my role in this vast cosmic tapestry. His grip on the Gandiva tightened, but with strength, not desperation. I fight, not as Arjuna the nephew, the student, the friend. I fight as Arjuna the warrior, steady, clear, undivided. Krishna's smile was gentle. And what of the fruit of action? Arjuna exhaled. The last of his fear melted into the air. I leave it to the divine. I act and release. I give my effort and surrender the outcome. He raised his bow. His eyes sharpened with renewed purpose. Krishna, I understand now. To be established in yoga is to stand in stillness even while moving, to act without chains, to love without owning, to walk through fire without burning. Krishna touched his charioteer's whip lightly. Then Arjuna, are you ready? Arjuna bowed his head. Yes, I am ready. The conch shells blared. The earth trembled. The sky shook with the cries of warriors charging into destiny. Arjuna stood tall in his chariot, shoulders steady, breath calm, eyes bright with unwavering resolve. He glanced once at Krishna, the friend who became a guide, the guide who became the voice of truth. Drive forward, Krishna. Krishna flicked the reins. The chariot surged, and Arjuna, once trembling, once broken, now moved like a flame untouched by the wind, a warrior who fought without hatred, acted without attachment, lived without fear. The sage within him had awakened, and as the battlefield thundered around him, Arjuna stepped into action. Free. If you like our work, then do like, subscribe, and share the channel.